Okay, so today we're going to be talking about season 4 of The Boys, specifically the strange queerification, we'll say, that befell Frenchie this season and the implications of it. First and foremost, spoilers. Bye. I want to state, though, that I know Frenchie is not gay. He's obviously bi. I just did that for the title, for the clicks, because the algorithm likes simplicity, okay? Please don't actually me about that, because I know I'll give you plenty of opportunities to correct me throughout the rest of this video, but I don't know if Frenchie has ever verbalized that he's bi, but there have been hints throughout the show. He's rather flamboyant and openly speaks about queer stuff, so I guess that's kind of what they were going for, which kind of demonstrates the issue as well, but I'll get more into that later. As of right now, I haven't seen anyone else talking about this particular part of the story for this season of The Boys, which makes me a little bit nervous. Whenever I see radio silence on something like this, my first reaction is to be like, okay, well, I guess my opinion is just wrong. Like, if no one else is talking about this, I'm sure I'm just like hallucinating and wrong, because surely if what I'm thinking is actually what I'm thinking it is, then more people would be talking about it. But since they're not, then I simply must just need to shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, but today, just for you, I've decided to go against my better judgment and make a video about this because it's interesting. I find it interesting anyway. A major issue I've always had with The Boys is that the arcs repeat over and over throughout the show with little resolved by the end of each season. I personally feel that the show has overstayed its welcome a bit because of this, which I feel kind of scared to say, but like this is pure everything, my opinion from my dome, okay? Each season of the show starts out with the boys being like, okay guys, we gotta do something about Homelander, and then hijinks ensue. They each almost die, but somehow don't. They nearly get Homelander, but somehow don't. And then both sides go back to their respective corners at the season's close to get ready for the next round, with relatively few chips having moved across the board. I fully believe that if you took out the stuff that they repeat over and over, the show could have been a great trilogy. Or even if they really needed to stretch it, it could have been a quartet. To me personally, though, 6 seasons is really too much considering where we started and the infinitesimal progress we've made up until the finale of this season. This season did feel different, but there was still a lot of filler, which I will give some grace. The Boys is really great at making filler feel like it's not filler, but then when you look back at it retrospectively and you see where you started and where you end up at the end of the season, it objectively is filler, right? What actually shoved the show into the next gear that I've honestly been waiting for since we found out about Ryan at the end of season 1 was literally only and completely and totally present in the finale of this season. But I'm getting away from myself a little bit. The reason I bring this up is because the plot lines in the show aren't the only things that repeat each season with little progression. It's also present in the character arcs of the show for like every single character, including but not limited to this nonsensical Kimiko, Frenchie, will they, won't they storyline. And I can't stand a will they, won't they. There's one thing I don't like. It's a will they, won't they. And the way that this show has handled theirs, it's atrocious to me. Genuinely, it's a crime. This especially stuck out in season 4 because they needed a reason to sustain the will they, won't they, but didn't have any more excuses, with Kimiko literally stating in the first episode that it was never going to happen between them. So they just gave Frenchie a new relationship with someone else to spend the time, essentially. A relationship that began and progressed off screen between seasons, mind you, showing what little care the writers actually had for the entire affair. And this is something that the writers have been guilty of before, like in the prior season when they tried to just build up this entire relationship or friendship between Huey and Newman, which I found a little bit more believable because the actors themselves had great chemistry. But in this case, it just didn't work. And that point is only emphasized more by the fact that Frenchie is thrust back into his heteronormative straight relationship at the first available opportunity. Literally the first available opportunity. The Kimiko and Frenchie will they won't they has existed since season 1 when they met, and is now exacerbated by us being drawn back to square one, essentially, with a definitive no from Kimiko, only for the finale to reverse that for no discernible reason, and now the two are perpetually separated. I feel that switching up at the last minute when they had 4 entire seasons to turn this into a romantic relationship really undermines what they built up to be a strong and complex friendship. To me, this really only feeds into the rhetoric that men and women can't just be friends, you know, which is obviously problematic. To be the devil's advocate for the show, though, they kind of subverted that trope with A-Train and Ashley's strictly platonic relationship, but still. I think what made this storyline more insufferable to me than it was in the other seasons was the fact that they made it so clear that they were running out of justifiable ideas for why Kimiko and Frenchie couldn't be together. Having seen the finale now, it's really clear to me that Kimiko and Frenchie have been endgame for the writers for a while, and they felt that they were running out of time to get there, so they just shoehorned this in. In every other season, this relationship was stunted by emotional reasons. They each had stuff going on that prevented them from getting together in that way, and thus strengthened their friendship. It always kind of felt like a maybe right person, definitely wrong time type of vibe, right? That kind of propelled them more into a friendship type of way, which I thought was like perfectly good. Like sometimes you just can't be with someone in that way and you're better off as friends. Like I thought that was a great whatever. It doesn't matter now, I guess, because they were making out in the warehouse. They still needed a reason for why they couldn't just jump straight into a Kimiko Frenchie romance, like off screen, the way that they've done with other relationships throughout the show. So they just wrote in actual obstacles, like a throwaway boyfriend for Frenchie and temporary jail time. That was nonsense. I'm sorry, just nonsense. Even as I'm saying it, I'm just like, what? Okay. Even as I say, though, that the writers wanted them to get together at this point, they're still ride or die for the will they won't they arc, clearly, because the second they profess their feelings and kiss, a few scenes later, they are physically separated with no way back to each other for the first time in the series. So what was all of this for? Like, genuinely, why? Like, why even bother? It felt like a deleted scene. I'm gonna be so for real with you. Them kissing in that warehouse, it felt like a deleted scene that somehow made the cut because somebody forgot to check. I will say, like, I did enjoy the traumatic moment that was the catalyst for Kimiko finally being able to produce words, but I don't believe that them being romantically involved was necessary for that to happen. Frenchie is her best friend in the whole world. Him literally being ripped away from her, like right in front of her eyes, in what could be a permanent way for the first time since they met, I mean, I think she could have been equally moved by that if they hadn't had the random makeout session. But that's not even getting into like the real issue that I have with this entire thing. As you can probably guess from the title and thumbnail of this video, I have an issue with the fact that they put Frenchie in a throwaway gay relationship seemingly to stall for time simply because I personally believe they just knew that they could do this and didn't put too much more thought into it beyond that. Remember when I mentioned that Frenchie never actually confirmed his sexuality? It's kind of roundabout and hinted to with some of the stuff he says, like the way that Lassen in the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is kind of like hinted to be not totally straight in the way that he flirts with everybody. Like it could go either way, and closeted homophobes could scoff and be like, no, he's not gay, until the writers want to siphon some goodwill from the queer community, and then it's suddenly, oh yeah guys, you can interpret anything any way that you want. My issue personally is not that Frenchie is bi. I think bi rep is really important, and we really like do not see enough of it in media right now. A character is either gay or they're straight, and that's the end of it, which is obviously not true to life. So I think that repping bi people and repping more fluid sexualities is important, and that's definitely not my issue at all. So if there's anything that you take from this video, take that. My true issue with all of this is that Frenchie is just gay enough that queer people can read into his actions and extrapolate representation while not being explicitly queer, so that the show can still appeal to a wider audience. The result is this strange paradigm where if ever the writers run out of ideas for a character's plot line, they can just fall back on that sexuality thing that they kind of sort of set up just enough that it basically makes sense, which is what The Boys did this season with Frenchie's character. Shows and movies do this all the time. I'm not going to call it queer baiting because I really feel like that term is overused and nobody really actually like understands what it means. So I'm just going to call it the queer insurance policy. Showrunners will know that they'll have a built-in audience by including queer representation and also have plausible deniability if the only reason that they went full force with a queer storyline was because they had nothing else for that character to do. Succession did this with several characters throughout the entire series, with Tom and Greg and the Nearest and Sporus, Nero, Sport, you know what I'm talking about. That whole thing that everybody was obsessed with for like 6 months, like Roman and all of the rumors that he had assaulted his trainer, basically. Skarsgård, is it Alexander or I always get their names mixed up, but the Skarsgård guy and his whole situation where he was like, he basically hung out with Roman and they peed into the same toilet. That was super homoerotic. You can't convince me that it wasn't. And also the thing with the president-elect, who was also in Perry Mason, the entire bathroom scene where they're at the hotel after the like political party was so sexually charged. If that scene had happened between Roman and a woman, you know that everybody would be freaking out about that. It was so grossly sexual. Or I guess maybe not sexual, but just like flirtatious. There were very long moments of intense eye contact throughout that entire thing. But even as they did this with so many characters throughout the show, they never had to go full send with any of it because they had other stuff for these characters to do. Another example of this could be found in The Bear. I'm nervous to talk about this, but I personally believe that The Bear did this exact thing in season 1 with Richie, but I have seen literally nobody else talk about that. So I actually will shut the fuck up about that. Like, I don't feel like, I don't know. I think it's interesting to go back and watch that season from a queer lens. Like, on a second watch, his behavior really stood out to me and made me feel like, are they trying to say that he's queer? But again, I haven't seen anybody else talking about that, and it kind of does make me feel like maybe I am just hallucinating. So another example that is actually legitimate could be found in Tara. It's been a long time since I've seen True Blood, but Tara in True Blood, they did that with her in the final season. The same thing that they did with Jed in the final season of Legacies and Korra in the final season of Legend of Korra. Writers do this kind of thing all the time, and it's strange and maybe even a teensy weensy little bit offensive, okay? Well, maybe not offensive, but disrespectful. Disrespectful is the word I'm looking for. I am not saying that characters have to run out in the middle of the episode and scream to the stars about how they can feel the rainbow running through their veins. But in the case of The Boys, at least, maybe they could show Frenchie making out with someone, or mention an affair that he had, or use him as the sexual bait for a mission for once instead of MM or Huey. Unless I'm missing something, which I fully admit that I might be. Remember how I said I would give you an opportunity to well actually me? This is your opportunity to well actually me, okay? Because I am absolutely not about to go back and rewatch the entire show just to make this video right now. The extent of Frenchie's queerness before this season is that he makes a few suggestive comments, wears crop tops, and once kissed Huey on the lips. That one time. I always chalked this up to a mixture of just his more flamboyant personality and him just being French, which I know people like to joke about that, like, is he gay or European? But like, that is a thing. Like, European men are more physically affectionate with one another than we typically tend to see in a place like America. Maybe there's more in there that I'm missing, that maybe something happened where it was explicitly confirmed. I don't know. I did watch the Man of Recaps video to supplement what I had already seen on screen, just in case I was missing something. He said, we know he's bi, and I was like, wait, do we? I don't remember that. How do you know? How do you know he's bi? I should have gone back and watched his other recaps for the other seasons, but it's like, I really didn't feel like it. Like, I finished this season, I watched the finale, and I watched his video because it came out the next day. That man is a legend. I wrote this script in the middle of the night on a fever dream. And here we are. Again, though, if I am missing something, like he did explicitly confirm that he was queer at any point, please feel free to correct me. I genuinely want to know, and I think it would be cool if they did talk about it earlier. Even if the show did explicitly confirm, though, that Frenchie is queer, the way that they went about his relationship with Colin, I think his name is Colin, like that's how forgettable he was. Like, I don't even remember his name. It just demonstrated such a distinct lack of care. I'm trying not to get let me chill out. Let me catch my breath for a second. I am getting pretty sick and tired of queerness in mainstream media being directly associated with abject misery. And that is undeniably the case for this relationship, this short-lived, mostly off-screen fling. I've never been a huge Frenchie lover, but I have always enjoyed how happy and upbeat his character usually is. He brings much needed levity to the show, similarly to the Deep on his side of things. So when they decided to make Frenchie the most miserable that he has ever been throughout the entire show, and it just so happens to coincide with him entering into a queer relationship for the first time that the viewers explicitly know about, yeah, my eyebrows were raised. I was squint. Not to mention the fact that he kept this relationship a secret for a while. Like, that's so crazy. But you really want to come up to me like I have the queer insurance policy? Like, everyone knew about him being bi the entire time. Why would he keep it a secret then? And don't even play me with some, oh, well, he killed dude's family. Like, that, he didn't need to tell anybody about that. And I'm still confused as to why he did. This is something that they do every season. Frenchie was involved with some dangerous people and he killed some innocents. Like, who cares? I'm sorry. Nothing ever comes of it. And that is the case with this Colin person in this season as well. The circumstances of this relationship are so... Let me just lay it out so that we're all on the same page here. Frenchie slaughtered a family of people on the orders from somebody else, but he failed to kill one of the kids. Yes, a kid, as in a child. While Frenchie was an adult out here killing folks, this person, who we find out is Colin, was a child. Years later, once Colin is all grown up into a grown, strapping man, they just so happen to bump into each other and they start having sex. And all of that was retconned in. All of that was retconned in for this season. Like, I don't know if I have memory loss or something, but their choice to make this shit up specifically to try to give some flavor to this weird ass relationship, like, why? Yeah, we know that Frenchie was a hitman, but if they wanted to pull this into this season's story more, then they needed to set up this specific event long before now. Like, maybe the slaughter of this family was a standout event that Frenchie mentioned as being specifically very traumatizing to him, and he wonders like whatever happened to the kid that he missed or something like that, you know. But they don't do that. Instead, they just throw this random backstory in there like it needed no further explanation. Again, please tell me. Please, I hope that I am missing something. I just feel like I have to be from how sparsely developed this whole backstory felt. This genuinely felt more like despicable to me than that nonsense with the time traveler's wife. Like, don't even get me started on that disgusting nonsense. What's worse about all of this is that this storyline never really had any closure. Frenchie was with this guy and they made a big deal about how guilty he was for keeping what he'd done a secret. So he tells the guy what he did and they inevitably have an emotional blowout, and then we never see Colin again. Like, we never see him again. Not even with like Annie and her foundation or whatever. Like, we never see him again. Frenchie just turns himself in and goes to prison for like 2 episodes until he gets out, and then he's suddenly happy again just in time to rekindle his heteronormative will they won't they relationship with Kimiko. Like, what? Excuse me? Sorry. Huh? I don't think I heard you right on that. That's crazy. I want to be so clear, like so incredibly crystal fucking clear, that I am not accusing anybody of being malicious or homophobic whatsoever. That's not my intent with this video. I honestly doubt that any of the writers went into this storyline like, yeah, let's disrespect some queers, like, or even like, let's push an anti-gay agenda but disguise it as representation. Like, I get that the way that I have come across in this video so far makes it seem like I'm like the fucking writers, but no, I don't think that they did this with harmful intent in mind. I just believe that it's important to interrogate the ways that our internalized biases do make it into media. And I think that that is honestly kind of the explanation for this. Even barring things like internalized biases, it's just fun to analyze and sometimes even overanalyze the media that I consume, especially from my own view as a queer person. I don't have any goals or agendas with discussing this other than to just discuss it and see if anyone else has anything to add, because I haven't seen anyone else talking about it, and it has been picking away at my brain. Do with that what you will. I don't want to leave the video off on a seemingly negative note, so I will talk about some things that I liked this season. My favorite thing about the season was the whole discount light versus L big brain plot that Sage concocted from the beginning, except it was literally just Sage against herself. Like, she'd been saying from the start that Homelander was too egotistical to truly listen to her, and she meant that shit. Like she built her plan around him being himself, which I think was, I liked it. I liked it a lot. Maybe not like super unpredictable or whatever, but I don't think that unpredictable is really the word for this season, to be fair, right? For the first time since the finale of season 1, the main plot of the story has actually progressed. And I am not counting the virus stuff that happened in Gen V, because that's literally a different show, and it really only proves my point about repetitive arcs more. Like, the only major plot progression from the end of season 1 before the finale of season 4 happened in a spin-off. Think about that, and then ask yourself the same question that I have been asking myself for the past 2 seasons of this show about why it is so fucking long and why nothing ever happens in it. Overall, I thought that season 4 of The Boys started out okay and ended amazingly, with a whole lot of filler in the middle. To give brief opinions on everything, RIP Black Noir. Oh my god, genuinely. I'm so glad that they didn't do what they had done in the comics with Black Noir. I think that whole like body double thing is ridiculous, but I'm just sad that he's dead, and like, he was my favorite character in the entire show, and I really can't believe that he actually is dead. Like, I can't believe that they wouldn't find a way to like magic him back to life. That sucks. Like, this whole actor replacing him thing got old so fast for me. In that same vein, I really liked Tech Knight's character. I can't believe he's dead either. Also, why would he have his computer in his sex dungeon like open to his bank information like that? Like why? Whatever. Suspension of disbelief, I guess. The whole thing with Kimiko and the girl that she hacked up whenever before, it was kind of boring, but like, to be honest, they usually do give Kimiko like really boring storylines. As I said, I liked Sage a lot. She was definitely my favorite character this season, and A-Train was the runner-up. Do you see what I did there? I wrote wink wink in brackets, but I can't, does that A-Train's moment outside the hospital with that kid was so sweet. Like, it literally gave me chills and made me smile. Like, I was so happy for him, considering his entire journey literally being the person who kicked off Huey's involvement with the boys. Like, I just really love that for him. I also really enjoyed his budding friendship with Ashley towards the end of this season. I wasn't expecting that to be something that I would really care about at all. But like, it was sweet that he went back to go and get her at the end of it all. I felt so bad for her that she essentially became the monster that she told him she was afraid of becoming, because now she's shot up with V and we don't even know what happened to her. I hope they don't kill her off too, but I think that's what they're building to. I think Ashley's gonna be killed next season, to be totally honest with you. Speaking of killing, I don't know why they killed Newman this season. I was never a huge like Newman stan or anything, but like I thought that she would at least be there to do more for Marie in season 2 of Gen V at the very least. Like, they built up this whole thing with her stealing the virus, but it didn't really hit this season. Like, they just have that weird farm episode, and that was like the extent of it. Like, that was really her plan. Like, that was her entire plan. Like, I don't know. What's up with Kate's arm? That's what I'm trying to get at. What's up with Kate's arm? Wasn't her arm blown off by Marie? Now it's suddenly back? Like, does she have Kimiko's lizard powers? Like, why is her arm back? I almost wish that they'd done more with the shifter soup, because they seemed kind of, well, not kind of, they were a very interesting character, but I am biased. I love body snatching stories. Like, I'm obsessed with that kind of stuff. And I do feel like if they had done too much with the shifter soup, it would have come off not as interesting probably. But like, I just love that kind of thing. Ryan, I hate that kid. He has and always will get on my goddamn nerves. I don't like that kid. He needs to either do something or someone else needs to do something about him. They keep having these little moments where he does something willingly that is just evil, like the thing with the producer who, yeah, is a bad dude, but like still, they think that they're balancing those moments of evil with more fleeting situations where he tries to do something good, like when he like stopped the puppet show or whatever. But like, yeah, literally all of the soups throughout the entire series show that they have the capacity for good. Even Homelander does, at very fleetingly, but even Homelander does. You know, he has more like down to earth moments. It's the capacity for evil, which they all also show, that makes the soups too dangerous to keep around. Even if it's an accident, the carnage that they cause makes them a danger to society. And Ryan has made it clear that he is absolutely no exception to that. I just wish that it hadn't taken a literal entire season for Butcher to get back on board with just killing all of the soups. The Deep didn't really do much for me this season, which stinks. I honestly really like his character in early seasons. He's a despicable person, obviously, but he always kept things interesting by adding new, almost slapstick storylines to the show when it was becoming monotonous. In season 4, that wasn't really the case. They just kind of kept the bestiality joke going. The reveal that Negan was actually in Butcher's head would have been so much greater if they'd actually like put effort into making us care about that character and their relationship. The whole thing could have been foreshadowed a lot more, but I do really love this kind of trope, so I was still thoroughly entertained by it. I didn't like clutch my pearls in shock or anything, though. It was kind of predictable. I will say though, that thing with Huey's dad in the hospital, while it was irrelevant to the storyline of the rest of the season, it kind of felt like a knockoff episode of The Bear. Like, it was pretty well done and pretty well acted. Even if it did emphasize the serious plot armor issue that the entire main cast has, it's a wonder that none of the main characters have died yet. Like, except for Noir, and I don't think he really counts as a main character anyway. Like, how has literally no one died yet? Not even Soldier Boy is dead. Like, literally, they're all still alive. It's been 4 seasons, and the singular goal of both sides has been to kill the other side. And yet nobody has died yet. I did think that Firecracker was a pretty interesting character who painted Starlight in a new way. I wish that they'd introduced her a little earlier in the season, to be honest though, or at least like a character similar to her and what she provided. I have long felt that Starlight has next to nothing to do other than follow Huey around to be his role reversal soup love interest, which is fine. The role reversal thing was very interesting to me in season 1, but she genuinely has had nothing to do at all since then. Starlight really needed some spice, and I feel like that is what Firecracker's revelations about her definitely gave. Them not introducing Firecracker earlier on, though, does make this new characterization seem like it comes a little bit out of nowhere. All of this meanness and behind the scenes hoopla, and none of the girls that Annie was mean to have ever resurfaced. She never even like hints to the fact that she could have gotten pregnant with the ex-boyfriend that we met last season who got brutally murdered. Like, there was nothing about it. They just retconned all of this stuff in. Starlight was just written kind of weirdly this season. She was super insensitive to Huey being literally sexually assaulted by the shifter soup. They tried to shove in a bunch of like hidden depths to her character to make her more complex this season, but it comes across as disingenuous since she's been the only character throughout the entire series who seems pretty much like incorruptibly good, which I've never been a huge fan of about her, but still, you have to stand on business, right? Like, and speaking of Huey, he has had to be the sexual bait for far too many missions, going all the way back to season 1 when he had to do that Jesus thing with Ezekiel. This show needs to stop writing these disgusting sexual assault scenes for him because they're just becoming gratuitously disgusting. To me, anyway, I don't know. I know that it's just Billy Butcher's character, but I feel like if he would just communicate with his team for half a second, I genuinely think they could have won by now. Genuinely. Like, he has a team of people who all love him, seen in the way that they immediately back down during the tentacle scene in the finale, and showcased through the way that they all just make excuses to keep letting him back into their life. This is one of the repeating arcs. Butcher messes up. The boys are like, we can't work with you. But then they all find a reason to forgive him and let him back in every single season, sometimes multiple times per season. And he gives them like no reason, like literally no reason to trust him. Like, he is a liar. He is a manipulator. He doesn't ever really get anything done. He obstructs their missions most of the time. Like, he sucks, but they keep letting him back in because they love him and they care about him. And he does not give them any kind of respect, has the nerve to kill Newman out of nowhere in front of her daughter, no less, and then turn around and say, you're welcome. Diabolical, I must say. Let's try to go a season without Homelander getting into another weird pseudo-sexual relationship, especially since this season, he really tried to be like, oh, I'm smart enough to listen, and then proved himself utterly wrong by never listening to Sage and then turning around and sucking on Firecracker's titties. I'm so over the breast milk thing. I can't stand it. It's so weird. It just feels like a backward slide for his character. Like, bro, you literally learned your lesson. I will say that MM had literally nothing to do this season, much like a lot of the characters. He had nothing to do this season. Basically spent this season trying to corral the boys, which wasn't working because Butcher was there, and having the exact same argument with his wife/ex-wife that he's been having since season 1. To close off with my favorite and least favorite episodes of the season, my favorite is tied between the finale, Homelander's lab episode, and Huey's hospital episode. My least favorite of the season was probably the episode with Tech Knight's party. It was a good episode with lots of tension, but just lots of disgusting, gratuitous nonsense as well. Like, I'm really not a prude, but the fact that it's all played up for laughs, like, ha 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 ha, Huey's in a costume being tickled and having cum rubbed all over his face. Like, it's just extreme for the sake of being extreme. Since season 3, they just seem as though they're asking themselves, like, look how far we can go. You want to see how far we can go? And personally, I don't really need or want to see how far they can go. If I wanted to see stuff like that, I would just go watch some porn. But instead, I'm here trying to watch a show that can't seem to go more than a few scenes without showing something disgusting, like the approximately 50-hour scene of MM trying to shoot drugs into that guy's asshole. That was disgusting. And the sound design was horrific. All in all, I did enjoy the season. I did enjoy it. I always enjoy The Boys. It's a good show. It's a good show. Even when it's bad and boring, it's still better than a lot of the other shows that I watch. I'm hyped for the 5th season. And I do believe that this show has overstayed its welcome, so I'm glad that it's also the final season. Thank the Lord, genuinely. I can't wait to see what they come up with next. But anyway, thank you I always hate doing the outro because it makes me feel weird. Thank you for stopping by, tuning in, and listening to me rant about season 4 of The Boys. I appreciate you. I would say I love you, but I don't know you. So peace sign. Bye-bye.